Bureaucrats are backbone of any government. Political governments come and go, but bureaucrats serve the government for 35 to 40 years till they retire. But of late, governments have adopted a new tradition of granting extension to bureaucrats, retiring at the age of 60 or re-employing them who have already retired. The center told Supreme Court recently that during last 10 years, 57 extensions have been granted to chief secretaries in different parts of the country. So when all bureaucrats are selected to the same civil services examination, they granted same training, they come through almost similar career. So why are some officers more equal than others? To discuss this complex issue, I am joined by two very senior, very fine officers who are considered legends in their own right. I have with me a 1959 batch IPS officer, Mr. Prakash Singh, who has twice served as Director General of Police, Uttar Pradesh, besides BSF Director General and Assam Police also. He is a Padma Shri. Besides him, I have with me Mr. Anil Swarup, 1981 batch IAS officer, who has served as Board Secretary and School Education Secretary at the center. So very, very warm welcome, sir. And before we start, let me share a very interesting thing with the audience. Both these officers are alumni of Allahabad University, and among them, they have authored not less than a dozen books. So they are very prolific writers, great thinkers. So, sir, first let me begin with you.
Okay.
So, why are officers granted extensions? Are extensions so necessary?
Look, extensions should be granted under extraordinary circumstances, and there is provision under the rules only for 6-month extension. But what we are witnessing is that extensions are being granted to officers not for their merit, not for their competence, not for their ability to deliver, but just because they are his master servants. The minister finds himself comfortable with the particular civil servant, and then he thinks, "Bhai, theek hai, yahi intizam chalta rahe. He carries out all my orders very faithfully, so let me carry on with him." So, irrespective of the merit of the officer, he manages to get not only one extension, but 2 extensions and 3 extensions. And this is causing havoc in the services. Havoc in the sense because, officers junior to him, they are also competent, brilliant officers in succeeding batches. And they don't get chance to reach the highest position, and they retire before that. So, the way extensions have been granted, it's very arbitrary, it's very discretionary, I would say. And there is no check on the criteria on the basis of which extensions are to be given.
So, Mr. Swarup, as sir has just pointed out, each extension granted to an officer hampers chances of his juniors, at least 2 to 3 batches, of gaining a more responsible and higher position. So, should there be a definite criteria for granting extensions?
See, first of all, I totally agree with what he's saying. Extensions are nothing new. Earlier also extensions were granted, but in a very limited and very extraordinary set of circumstances. For example, elections around the corner, so you grant extension to a concerned officer. Now it seems to have become a routine, and that's where the problem is. Number one, it's become a routine. Number two, there is no objective criteria of determining why a person is being given extension. Are there not competent enough officers available? Because earlier, when such a decision was taken, a lot of thought used to go into it, and then extension was given. Either set of circumstances or the individual is so outstanding. As he very correctly pointed out, each one comes through a process. And there is nothing wrong for any officer to aspire to reach the top. That is one of the aspirations of any of the officer who joins the service. He would like to go to the top. And the only reason he's denied is not because he's incompetent, because someone is more pliable and he's more acceptable to the political authority, and they are getting extension. Now, this not merely demoralizes that officer, it sends wrong signals to the entire bureaucracy. That's the most important thing. Because governments are run through Iqbal or the confidence or the faith that they have in the system. Now, if that faith gets eroded, in the long run, it destroys the morale of the entire bureaucracy. Not merely people who reach the top or who could reach the top. The signal is, you be servile, you be pliant, the chances are that you may stay there. And secondly, as I said, I'm not fundamentally against extension. If there is an extraordinary set of circumstances, you do that. But ये जो पहले डेली वेजर होगा, जो एनुअल वेजर हो गया ना, कि आपने 6 महीने के लिए दिया, फिर 6 महीने के लिए दिया. Like in the case of cabinet secretary, he has a tenure of 2 years. Now, if every cabinet secretary is going to go to 4 years, make it 4 years. Let everyone know it's 4 years. It does not become discretionary, as he points out. If it is subjective and discretionary, that's where the problem is.
So, what is the set of criteria which the government should adopt to select somebody to grant extension?
So the criteria could be worked out. So firstly, when you have got a fixed tenure of 2 years, now there are officers in the police and there are officers in the bureaucracy who have 2-year fixed tenure. Now, once you have a fixed tenure of 2 years, the question of further extension should not arise. These 2-year tenures were given so that you have a decent period to administer and within which you can initiate policies and ensure their execution at the ground level. So people who have got fixed tenures, they should never be given extension. Then extension, if extension is to be given, as Anil said just now, if there are extraordinary circumstances, I mean, suddenly you're in the midst of a crisis, which is going to persist, say, for the next 3 months, 6 months or so. And then you have a team. You don't want to disturb that team during a period of crisis. You don't want change of guard at that time. So let the existing team continue for some more time. And then, of course, then they could be considered for retirement. And thirdly, I think there should be some kind of, considering the arbitrary and the very discretionary manner in which extensions have been given, I'm wondering if some kind of check could be exercised. That all right, once you have given an extension, that's fine. But if you are giving a second extension, let there be some judicial oversight, or let there be some mechanism. Lokpal ko jaye ya kahin ko jaye. I mean, that can be thought of and that can be worked out. That second extension will not depend just on the appointment committee and the home minister wants him, and so all right, he gets extension.
So Anilji, we have seen during the last 10 years, ever since this government came, the NSA, Principal Secretary to Prime Minister, Cabinet Secretary, Miss ED Chief, you name the post, the top positions, and same people have been continuing year after year despite Supreme Court's strictures. So why are some people so important to the government? Since you have worked with this government not long ago, so I think you are the right person to tell us why some people are so important for this government.
See, first of all, we should differentiate between NSA, Principal Secretary to Prime Minister, and other posts that you said. Because they are not, so to say, cadre post or so. There, it is a very personal sort of thing. It's like a cabinet minister.
Right.
So you can have a cabinet minister for 10 years and give him extension, throw him out, get him in. I have no quarrel with that. My problem is that, as we've been discussing, once you decide upon a tenure of an officer, like Home Secretary has a tenure of 2 years, and no reflection on an outstanding officer that you have right now. But there are many more outstanding officers in the queue. So, as Mr. Singh very correctly pointed out, it is the pliability and servility of the officer that has started determining whether he gets extension. Obviously, he must be bright. So are other officers. So, the comfort level of the politician with a particular officer perhaps leads him to decide that इसी को चलने दो, अब दूसरा आएगा पता नहीं कैसा होगा. And there have been some examples. Let's look at it this way. Look at what happened to Director CBI at some point in time. I'm giving this example just to illustrate how it could become tricky for the government. Now, all CBI directors selected through a committee after due diligence.
Right.
Now, here is a CBI director who started speaking his mind. What do you do? Now, look at what happens to him. Now, though he was selected after due diligence, suddenly something wrong is found with him. Now, my contention, I wrote about it also, was that if everything was not right with him, the guys who gave him certificate, including the CVC, For him to be made CBI, action should be taken against them. Because he didn't do anything wrong as CBI director. They found something about him before CBI director. Why in the hell he was made the CBI director? So it merely conveys a message to the bureaucracy at large. You do what I tell you to do. You comply without any resistance. You probably will get extensions. This is not good for governance as a whole. I think the politician has to be benefited by free and frank opinion of a civil servant, whether a police officer or an IS officer. If that doesn't happen, and it will not happen, because that guy knows that if I do what he's telling me, I might get an extension. So it's all psychological. As I said in the beginning, Iqbal se chalta hai. Administration Iqbal se chalta hai. Or ek baar this goes down in the bureaucracy that I should keep shut. I should only say yes. Then what sort of a bureaucracy are we creating? And that is the signal that keeps to be coming, that if you keep saying yes, the rewards are available to you. And that's the most dangerous thing for bureaucracy to happen. Rewards will still be available, but if that becomes the only criteria, rather than efficiency becoming the criteria, right, objectivity becoming the criteria, then we are in for serious trouble. You will have people telling you only yes, man. I'll give you again a very concrete example. As you said, I was in the government. Look at one of the biggest problems that this country faces today, unemployment. Is the most serious problem that we have. And I doubt whether any civil servant would be speaking his mind out to bring this to the fore on the table, because he knows agar bol diya kahin, phir mere ko extension nahi milega. So this is the reward system that we are creating now is going to create havoc with governance. So I have no problem with extension per se. If there are objective criteria laid down, and one of them being if there's an emergency or such circumstances where extension should be given, it should be given. I'm not against that. But it should be defined. You can't have 6 months. You know, we have chief secretaries, 6 months extension, 1 year extension. What is this going on? And then how will that officer give you an objective opinion when he knows कि अब मेरा tenure खत्म हो रहा है, अब इस बात पे निर्भर करेगा मैं कैसे इनकी बात मानता हूँ, मुझे extension मिल जाएगा. That I'm not very sure whether that's the right.
Mr. Arun Veer Singh of Yamuna Expressway Authority has been given 6 extensions recently. So I won't take names because the list is very long. But Mr. Prakash Singh, I have 2 questions to you. One is relates to what Mr. Anil Swarup said just now, pliability and having a backbone and to say what you think is right. So you are one of those rare officers who served as Director General of Police of a state twice in a very short period. So was this quality or disquality a reason why you were removed and then you were brought back again?
Well, I think you broadly know the circumstances under which I was thrown out, and you also know the circumstances under which I was brought back again. You see, I uphold certain principles, and I don't compromise on that. I believe that I have to enforce the rule of law, and that has to be done under all circumstances. If government wants slight deviation here and there, I mean, minor adjustments I can make. But I have a Lakshman Rekha beyond which I said, sorry, thus far and no further. So, I mean, a situation, when I was removed, I mean, they started realizing that this man is politically not pliable and that he may defy us. He may not carry out our orders. Because there were situations, I have recorded that in my book also, and there's no secret about it. There were situations where a chief minister is presiding over a meeting where the principal secretary of home is sitting, chief secretary is sitting, DG intelligence is sitting. I mean, the whole and half a dozen ministers are sitting. And the discussion is going on. They raise certain issues. And I'm the one and the only dissident voice. The entire bureaucracy keeps quiet. All my subordinate staff keep quiet. I am the only one, the lone dissenter. Why? I must be mad. Or I'm the only person who has the guts to speak the truth. So when they realize that this man is the lone dissenter, when the entire top brass is sitting here, or the bureaucracy, ministers, or Baki police officer, he's the lone dissenter, then they said, no, this man is difficult and we can't depend on him. So I was thrown out. That was the reason I was thrown out.
Then why
and then I was brought back because See, situation went out of hand. There were communal riots in the state, and all the districts were on fire.
No, let me explain. Let me explain.
And then,
You are personally involved. Let me explain as an outsider. Sir, you are a role model. I'll tell you why.
And then government felt that law and order has to be restored. Communal situation has to be controlled. And at this time, he is the only officer who can probably deliver. So they brought me back, and that was the central government.
This is important for you.
Government with a different political complexity.
No, I'll tell you why. See, he becomes a role model. How? He establishes a point that by being a principled man, it is not necessary that you will be ignored. What I have been advocating, and we all learned from a person like him, is that you don't have to necessarily only be honest. If you are efficient, then you will be recalled. And there are a few officers like him who established to the rest of the bureaucracy that you don't have to necessarily be pliable in order to be wanted. There's so many of them who were not pliable, and they had no other agenda. Like, he didn't have any other agenda. The only agenda he had in mind was law and order should be maintained, principle should be maintained. Usually the impression is that civil servants who are principled, who are honest, are ignored. He stands as a classic example of a person who may have been, he uses the word thrown out. So be it. That happens to even the pliable ones. They also get thrown out. In fact, they get jailed, some of them. So it is not necessary. And that's what I have tried to highlight in my book also. That you don't have to necessarily be dishonest to succeed in civil service. You can be honest, but you have to be efficient. And he proves that point. That though he was, so to say, thrown out, he was called back to handle a problem. I went through similar situations. I mean, I won't use the word thrown out. I was eased out to a different location. But then when a crisis came, they called me again. Where do I learn from? I learned from people like Mr. Prakash Singh. Because I saw it from my own eyes, how he was initially, so to say, rejected and thrown out. And how, because of his efficiency, he comes back. So he becomes a role model for others to. I tell a lot of bureaucrats, you must look at people like Mr. Prakash Singh. I mean, he may have suffered for a very short while. But ultimately, I'm sure he must be a very satisfied man. He did what he wanted to do. So that's the point that really needs to be conveyed. As you said in the beginning, politicians come and go. But civil servants leave a mark, and they can leave a mark, and they can leave a mark as an honest but efficient officer. So that's why I wanted to intervene in between to explain why he came back, because he was wanted, because he could deliver. Now that's very important for a civil servant. Just honesty will not do. If you're inefficient, you will never be wanted. You have to be efficient.
Discussing the second question I wanted to ask you is, you are one of those who have actually filed a PIL in the Supreme Court challenging these extensions, the extension policy of the government.
Yes, in fact, I filed a PIL in 2013 against extensions and also against re-employment of officers. I said, what is this? I prepared a list of about 100 civil servants who were re-employed after their retirement. And most of them, belong to certain ministries where you get in touch with people and where you can oblige people, this and that. So I said, this is, eroding the integrity of the services. On the eve of your retirement, you are pleasing certain sections who would provide you shelter, who would provide you employment, who would give you money, handsome amount of salary. So you are obliging them. And here is a list of people who have been re-employed soon after. So I said there should be a cooling off period. For 1 year, there should be there should be complete ban on any re-employment by these people. After 1 year, if you are still,
you have fire in you.
You still the fire in your belly and you are wanted in the private sector, yes, so be it. But 1 saal to kam se kam aap there.
But that is for private sector. For government, there can be a continuity. Do you think there is a break required for re-employment or extension granted?
Re-employment, you see, re-employment in public sector, private sector, this, that's a different ball game.
Private sector.
No, but the tragedy is.
But let me complete this story.
Yeah.
Why was this PIL thrown out on the very first day? Mind you, of all the people, somehow Harish Salve got interested in me and he said, all right, I'll take up this PIL. And while in other PILs, I had to spend some money, not much, but some money. In this PIL, I didn't have to spend 1 paisa. Harish Salve's office took care of everything. So he he's a firebrand and he's one of our leading advocates of the country. He argued the case very forcefully on the day of its admission. But the Chief Justice would just not listen. He threw out the PIL. He refused to admit it. And why? We knew that about a few months later. The Chief Justice retired and he was made governor of a South Indian state. So he didn't want to do something which would bar his own prospects of getting employment, some employment. So if at the Chief Justice level this kind of thing is happening, then God save this country. God bless this country.
So, Mr. Anil, you have worked in so many departments and ministries. You have seen government from very close quarter. So have you seen some honest people also being granted extensions?
Oh yes, many honest people. I mean, frankly speaking, I know both the Cabinet Secretary and the Home Secretary current. Outstanding officers, both very honest officers. Ajay Bhalla was my Joint Secretary, one of the finest officers. But that does not take away the logic of not granting a sanction as it is being done. The point is there's so many other officers similarly available. What is this message and the signal that you're giving? You know, when extensions get granted, it is not that always all such officers who are liable get those extensions. It's a matter of principle and the signal that is being given. So I'm in principle against them, not against any individuals. They may be very bright and I vouch for an officer like Ajay Bhalla. So that's not the issue. Issue here is, by doing that, what is the signal you are giving to the rest of the bureaucracy? But let me touch upon a point that he was making earlier. See, when almost everyone is waiting for rewards, what will happen to decision-making process? And it has now gone up to the judicial level. Imagine this is perhaps the only country in the world where a Supreme Court judge holds a press conference against the sitting Chief Justice and nothing happens to him. You and I do it, we'll be behind the bars. And then not only that, he himself becomes the Chief Justice of India. Imagine. And then there is a sexual harassment case. And for the first time, I heard there can be a compromise in a sexual harassment case. You know, either the lady was wrong or he was wrong. There can't be a compromise. Either she did it or he did it or he didn't do it. There can't be two things. So either the action should have been against the lady for wrong complaint or against the judge. But nothing happened. A compromise happens. And lo behold, after retirement, he becomes member of parliament. And this man sits on very critical judgments of the country. So I'm not talking of an individual case. Look at the signal it is sending. This re-employment business, I'm not against, I tell you, I'm not against re-employing civil servants. They should be done. But there has to be some criteria, there should be some basis. And certainly, anyone occupying constitutional post should not be employed by the government, should not be given. There's a difference. Because as a civil servant, you are not the final judge of issues. But as an election commissioner or a high court judge, you are deciding upon critical issues. You have taken a decision. And there, if you are looking for rewards of re-employment, as has been done, I think you're taking away all objectivity. And people start doubting such institutions which we have revered over the years.
Mr. Singh, were you ever given an offer of an extension, and you also, both of you?
No, I was never given an offer of extension, but I'll tell you the story behind. When I was Director General BSF, I had a very short tenure because we retired at 58. I had already been DG Assam, I had already been DG UP, so I was running against time. I had just about 7 months to go. The Cabinet Secretary was very happy with my performance, and not that I said anything. He on his own, he said one day that, Prakash, I think we'll give you extension. I listened to it and forgot about it. But my nature being what it is, I was always having problem with the Home Secretary. And the Home Secretary is, good in his own way, but he didn't like me because I was simple, straightforward, blunt, and I would not accept any nonsense. So he did not like me. And the Home Secretary was therefore anxious that this man should not get extension. And in a remarkable instance, in my case, 1 month before my retirement, the order was issued that Prakash Singh, on his retirement, this man will take over as DGBSF. Normally, it happens 24 hours or 2-3 days. Sometimes it doesn't happen even after retirement. The post remain vacant for months. But in my case, 1 month before my retirement, the Home Secretary ensured that he gets that a successor is appointed so that Prakash Singh does not get extension. Not that Prakash Singh ever tried or ever spoke about
Yes, sir.
No, I was asked that I should meet the Prime Minister before retirement. And I knew, I mean, I would have met him, no problem with that, but I had absolutely no issue. I didn't want to be there. But I must also confess that the Chief Minister of Jharkhand approached me and he asked me whether I could advise him. So I said, I'll advise him without realizing what I was getting into. And then he called me and he gave me a job. So I was there for about 5 months.
As an advisor to the
I was in a multiple capacity there. I didn't know what had hit me. But within 5 months, I realized I'm in the wrong place at the wrong time. So I politely told him that I'm going back. So I was there for 5 months.
Because it was a political post.
No, it was not a political post. It was Chief Executive Officer, technically Chief Executive Officer of the State Planning Commission in the rank of Minister of State or something like that. So I was uncomfortable there. So I came out and I did that. And thereafter, I politely said no to any offers that came to me because I'm thoroughly enjoying my freedom now.
Sir, it was very nice talking to both of you on this complex subject, and I hope there are takeaways for all officers, and maybe the government may also listen to the conversation and might formulate some criteria to grant extension or re-employment to senior officers who are retiring or who are already retired. Thank you very much, Mr. Singh. Thank you very much, Anil.
Thank you.